rolls into the reason and says, hey, don't you think making money together is better than killing each other? And don't you think that'd be better, Tanner? Wouldn't you rather see us make money than kill each other?
Yeah,
Doesn't that sound
anything
good?
but kill each other.
Yeah, come on. Welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast. David Penn, your host. Glad to be with you on this Thursday night, May 15th, 7:30 p.m. for episode number 206 on Manifest Destiny. There's a concept that most of us haven't discussed since junior high school. And that's when I last discussed it. Tanner, good morning.
Good morning.
Does the words Manifest Destiny ring
Yes, I've heard it in rap lyrics, but that's about it.
in rap lyrics?
Yes.
Wow. Well, we're going to go over the concept of Manifest Destiny. And without further ado, Tanner, to get this going, could you please play number one?
And he's also talking about, he doesn't like Trump talking about expanding. The United States has always expanded, either by force or we buy things. We bought Alaska from the Russians. We bought half the country from the French. We beat the Mexicans, the Native Americans, the Spanish, the British. That's how we do things here. It's manifest destiny. And if we find out that we need Greenland as a matter of national survival, of course, any president, Republican or Democrat, should get it by any means necessary. And it looks like right now we have our intelligence agencies in Greenland on the ground right now, ensuring that they vote for independence.
That's right.
That's the well-known Jesse Waters opining about Manifest Destiny on the globalist neocon network, Fox News. And I have many Republicans that I associate with here in Minnesota that are regular daily consumers of Fox News. So if that's your news source, you would consider it normal that the United States would expand its borders through, as Mr. Waters said, by any means necessary. By any means necessary. I think Malcolm X was the person that made that famous, and that was related to the liberation of oppressed Black people here in the United States. But hey, you know what? Once it comes out of someone's mouth, it's no longer owned by them. And I guess it's Jesse Waters' view that whatever we got to do in any way we got to do it, and that's the way it's going to be because it is what it is. Great. This idea of manifest destiny requires a lot of exploration because it's baked into the self-image and identity of what it is to be an American, particularly for certain groups of Americans who came here long ago and participated in the expansion of the colonies from sea to shining sea. In fact, the United States has changed its borders 16 times since 1776. 16 times.
That makes sense.
That's a lot of manifest destiny. I got a kind of a kick out of this. Don Bacon, the reviled, in my opinion, Don Bacon, congressperson from Nebraska, who's leading the anti-Trump charge in the Congress, criticized Putin and Russia, saying that since the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia has changed its borders 12 times. Okay. I guess the United States and Russia have something in common. The concept of a manifest destiny, which is a religious imbued purpose that justifies by any means necessary. And if you happen to be a Native American, which I have a lot of contact with that community, you are a living victim of the manifest destiny that was held as a belief by not to be crude about it, but the Protestants that came from Europe and were the drivers of the move from sea to shining sea. In fact, these same Protestants resisted the immigration to the country of Catholics, Jews, Italians, Eastern Europeans, and every other group that's ever come here since they rolled in with the Mayflower. So this goes back to the way back, and we don't think about it enough. It's in our collective unconscious. It needs to be dredged up and explored as part of the general identity inventory that we as American citizens are going to need to take if we're going to start healing the rifts which divide us. Manifest destiny is not simply an American idea. Isn't that interesting? We just said the Russians. Let's look at another group. Please play number 2.
Some of Israel's closest allies have condemned comments made by Minister Bezalel Smotrich about letting 2 million Palestinians die of hunger. Smotrich claimed that it might be justified, it might be moral, to let them starve until Israeli captives are returned. Those comments have been heavily criticized by the U.S., the U.K., and the European Union on Thursday. Let's get more on that with Phil Lavelle. Phil is in Washington, D.C. So, Phil, tell us what's being said. What's the reaction in Washington to this?
Well, I think saying heavily criticized is probably putting it mildly. The Biden administration, for want of a better word, seems pretty disgusted by these comments. It was a short statement that was released, but it was fairly to the point. It said, "We are appalled by these comments, and we reiterate that this rhetoric is harmful and it is disturbing. The President and the Secretary of State have repeatedly stressed the need to end the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, remove any obstacles to the flow of aid, and restore basic services for those in need." Now, of course, these comments will have been welcomed by some in the far right side of Israel, but they have been widely frowned upon in the international community. I mean, the European Union described them as, put them in plain terms, said this is a war crime, deliberate starvation. That's how you describe it. France said it had deep dismay at what it called scandalous remarks. And the UK said there could be absolutely no justification for these remarks. But perhaps now that we've seen some strong words come from the US, Israel's closest ally, maybe that will hit home a little bit more.
Well, this is just going to add to what are already fraught relations between the Biden administration and the Netanyahu government.
Yeah, I mean, the government here is really having to straddle two lines at the moment because it is giving unwavering support, ironclad is the word that they're using, for Israel in terms of its defense against Hezbollah and Iran. But at the same time, it is clearly obvious through both observations and through leaks that Joe Biden is getting increasingly frustrated with Prime Minister Netanyahu. I mean, just remember last week when he was at that airbase welcoming those hostages back from Russia, a couple of journalists threw some questions at him about the situation in Gaza, and Joe Biden said he, meaning Prime Minister Netanyahu, has the basis for a ceasefire. He's got to accept it. And he also said that the killing of Ismail Haniyeh had not helped. And obviously, Kamala Harris, who also met Netanyahu when he was in town last month, who could be president in January, not beyond the realms of possibility, she has said that she will not remain silent on the issue of Gaza. So obviously, there is a lot of pressure now from the US on Israel to accept that ceasefire. But these comments from the finance minister will not have done any help.
No, absolutely. And disgust, I think, is fair to say, voiced by the UK, the EU, and now the US. Disgust, but not actions, I would add. Phil Lavelle, reporting from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tanner. Thank you. I play that as a historical marker because we're going to talk about Israel Finance Minister Smotrich, who was featured in that clip, advocating for the starving of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, said yesterday that within a few months, the Gaza Strip will be, quote unquote, totally destroyed, and the entire Palestinian population will be, quote unquote, concentrated in a tiny area in the southern part of the Palestinian territory before being forced to leave as part of an ethnic cleansing campaign. Smotrich said that, quote, within a few months, we'll be able to declare that we have won. Gaza will be totally destroyed. In another 6 months, he said, Hamas won't exist as a functioning entity. The population of Gaza will be concentrated in the Marag corridor southwards. The rest of the strip will be empty. The Gazan citizens will be concentrated in the south. They will be totally despairing understanding that there is no hope and nothing to look for in Gaza, and will be looking for relocation to begin a new life in other places. Smotrich continued. The Palestinian population will leave in great numbers to third countries. Well, he closed it by saying that, occupying and then asserting Israeli sovereignty over the Gaza area is one of the most important challenges of the current times. It's a historic opportunity. So, this is ethnic cleansing. They're removing this population of Palestinians from the Gaza. And Israel clearly, from its actions, and I say this as an American citizen who was born Jewish, is clearly expanding its territory by force of arms. And I'm troubled by it. I don't think it's humane, and I don't think it's going to contribute to world peace. And I wonder, based on President Trump's trip this week to the Gulf states, he visited Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE. We're going to talk about that right now. I wonder if there's a new Trump foreign policy doctrine emerging, not just on international trade, but also foreign policy. Israel is armed to the teeth, has allegedly about 400 nuclear weapons, has the strongest military in the region, save for Turkey, which is also potent and a NATO ally. So we have two allies of the United States in the region, and those two countries, their militaries are really in very close proximity in Syria. And out of nowhere, President Trump removed all the sanctions on Syria, met with al-Jolani, the former franchisee of al-Qaeda in Syria, and sanctified the new Syrian government. And word around the campfire is there's going to be a Trump Tower in Damascus. Wow. How's that for some foreign policy surprise? But I wonder if there's a new foreign policy emerging. Of course, I don't have any 8x10 glossies, and the way I'm going to verify this is by listening to Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin. They're going to tell me if a new foreign policy in the Middle East is emerging, because President Trump cut a peace agreement with the Houthis in Yemen to open up shipping through the Red Sea to the Suez Canal. He didn't consult the Israelis. He said, hey, we're doing our own thing. And now, without consulting the Israelis, he's gone to visit the Gulf states. And around that same campfire is a rumor that the United States is very close to concluding a new nuclear arms control agreement with Iran. So is it possible that Israel's unrivaled power in the region and Israel's unrivaled power here in the halls of power in Washington is being checked by President Trump by his elevation of other countries, Qatar, Saudi, and Turkey, as a counterbalance to Israel's might? Is that possible? Is President Trump thinking out of the box that has existed since 1946, seeking what? What is he seeking? He's not seeking the destruction of the Jewish people. He's seeking peace and prosperity for the American people, and then by extension, all the people in the world. Well, this has to be determined. Before President Trump visited the Gulf region, the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, which is right there in the Gulf, right across the water, stone's throw from Iran, they announced that They were going to buy $1.4 billion of weapons from the United States. That would include $1.3 billion for Chinook helicopters and another $130 million for parts and support for F-16 fighter jets. The UAE closely coordinates with the Saudis in terms of military security matters. And then President Trump went to the region, and he rolled on into Saudi Arabia, where he announced a $600 billion investment by the Saudis in the United States. There was $142 billion of arms purchases, which has been called, quote unquote, the largest defense cooperation agreement in American history. And then investments for another $450 billion in America by the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund. So President Trump, salesman in chief, is out doing what he needs to do to keep the United States of America from going down to the bankruptcy court, and that's getting what you call orders for what we have to sell, which is oil and technology and weapons. That's what he's doing. He's selling. But something even more important happened there from my perspective. Tanner, could you please play number 3?
Today we begin a new chapter that will bring lasting benefits to all of our citizens. I stand before you as a representative of the American people to deliver a message of friendship and hope and love. That is why I chose to make my first foreign visit a trip to the heart of the Muslim world. Our vision is one of peace, security, and prosperity in this region and all throughout the world. Our goal is a coalition of nations who share the aim of stamping out extremism and providing our children a hopeful future that does honor to God. This landmark agreement includes the announcement of a $110 billion Saudi-funded defense purchase, and we will be sure to help our Saudi friends to get a good deal from our great American defense companies, the greatest anywhere in the world. Later today, we will make history again with the opening of the new Global Center for Combating Extremist Ideology, located right here in this central part of the Islamic world. America is a sovereign nation, and our first priority is always the safety and security of our citizens. We are not here to lecture. We are not here to tell other people how to live, what to do, who to be, or how to worship. Instead, we are here to offer partnership based on shared interests and values. Young Muslim boys and girls should be able to grow up free from fear, safe from violence, and innocent of hatred. But in sheer numbers, the deadliest toll has been exacted on the innocent people of Arab, Muslim, and Middle Eastern nations. They have borne the brunt of the killings and the worst of the destruction in this wave of fanatical violence. This is not a battle between different faiths, different sects, or different civilizations. This is a battle between barbaric criminals who seek to obliterate human life and decent people, all in the name of religion. People that want to protect life and want to protect their religion. This is a battle between good and evil.
What a speech. And we have the pundits here in this country calling President Trump a dummy. That is a speech that's going to be remembered for a very, very long time. I, as a young man, I was an anthropology student. I spent a lot of time, years, working my anthropology in the Muslim community here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota. And, it's said in the anthropology world that if you really want to understand a culture, you need to marry into it. Well, I did that with the Chinese. With the Muslim community here, I just made very, very deep, lifelong friendships. And I was just never afraid. Even as an American Jew, I was not afraid to meet and break bread with fellow American citizens because that's what these people were. And I wanted to know how they thought about this problem. Now, this was in about 1978. So this goes back a ways, and I don't think I would get the same answers today and the same kind of cooperation in answering my questions today as I did then. But I did learn so much about how the people of that region perceive the West. And what President Trump said was novel. He was not there. The United States of America, well, President Trump is bringing the post-World War II Democrat liberal order to its end. And that Democrat liberal order believes in itself because it's a religion. And that religion, the Democrat liberal order, is in conflict with Islam because the Democrat liberal order is secular and atheist, and Islam believes in God. So right off the bat, there is a disconnect. And then every time an American leader has rolled into the Arab world since they started rolling in there, there's always been this presumption that the United States and our system is better. And somehow this Muslim population of over 1 billion people needs our help and our guidance to come into the modern world. And President Trump just said, no, we're not doing that. He wasn't standing there to tell people how to live their lives, how to worship. That is a big change. If you think about how the previous presidents have gone into every country, China, wherever we've gone, we have always gone in with this agenda about human rights and civil rights and equal rights, telling countries, peoples, how they are to live their lives in their sovereign nations. Well, this is kind of neocolonialism, right? And I just want to say, unable to fully grasp and then fully articulate how people feel in that region. But wow, the West, the colonialists, have been exploiting and manipulating these countries for hundreds of years, extracting the wealth and pitting all these different sub-factions in the region against each other and then arming them and presiding over slaughter after slaughter after slaughter. Israel just being the maraschino cherry on top of a very unholy sundae of borders and agreements, the worst of which was the Sykes-Picot Agreement, which was consummated between the French and the English around the time of the ending of the Ottoman Empire, the Turkish Empire, where the French and English carved up the region into colonial sectors and worked together to exploit these peoples. So what President Trump is saying, man, this isn't about a clash of civilizations. This isn't one religion fighting another religion. This is the holdover from the colonial period. Of course, when you're occupied and oppressed and your brothers and sisters are slaughtered, it's going to lead to very dark feelings and goals like revenge. And President Trump is saying, hey, we're not going to do that anymore. We're here to be a partner, not to tell you how to live your lives in your own country. This is groundbreaking. This could be called the Trump Doctrine, just as the Truman Doctrine was established right after World War II, where the United States said, through Truman's Doctrine, that we would go any place in the world to defend democracy. And we've been doing it ever since. President Trump is saying, no, we're not. We just want peace. We don't care if you're Democrats, communists, Marxists, a kingship, an emirship. It's none of our business. You go live your lives in your country the way you want to. And of course, that would be a natural extension of the deconstruction of globalism, which was seeking one global governance and one world economy. Well, of course, if you're not going to head towards a world global governance, if you're going to head to national sovereignty instead, why would it be our business how people want to live their lives in Bangladesh or Gabon? And what was so interesting, that was a meeting not just with that was in Saudi Arabia, where that $600 billion business deal was announced. But leaders from all over the Islamic world came and were in that room. Prominent among those was King Hussein of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. If you go back and look at the history, the Hashemites at one time occupied and controlled Mecca and Medina, the holiest sites in Islam, which are in Saudi Arabia, and they were expelled by the House of Saud in alliance with the Wahhabis, which is a priestly class. And they weren't expelled nice. They were run out in a war, and the Hashemites ended up in Iraq and Jordan. They were run out of Iraq also. And here's King Hussein, the grandson of the dude that was defeated, and he was there in Saudi. That's very epic and noteworthy. And also there was Mohammed Abbas, the leader of the Palestinians, of the Palestinian Authority. And that was a gathering of the clan. Those folks don't get along very well. In fact, I have to say, in comparison to the Islamic world, MNGOP is getting along a lot better. We're not slaughtering each other, armed on both sides by the English. But, you know, they all got together, and they were brought together by President Trump's presence in the region. I mean, it's, you know, this is just epic. Well, we'll see where it goes. President Trump, while he was in Saudi, delinked the Saudi nuclear aspiration from the Biden administration's previous demand that before the United States would share nuclear technology with the Saudis, they would have to normalize their relationship with Israel, which was on track up until October 7th, followed up with the forced expulsion, which we would call, you know, ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people out of Gaza. The Saudis said, "Nah, that's a no-starter. That's a non-starter for us." So what does President Trump do? He says, "You know what? It's a non-starter for me too. How about we just do business and we'll put you folks in the nuclear power club," which kind of in a certain kind of way, if you have a kind of a dark view like I do, it kind of seems to me like the United States is helping the Saudis set up a nuclear weapons program so that they could then balance the Iranian nuclear weapons program and the Israeli nuclear weapons program, erecting the Saudis as a regional power. And guess what? With $142 billion of U.S. arms, the largest arms package in the history of our country. You know, these are big changes, big changes. Then President Trump sauntered on over to Qatar, where he announced a $1.2 trillion economic cooperations with the Qataris, including the purchase of 160 jets from Boeing for Qatar Airways. Well, this is a big deal too, because Qatar, do you know the country of Qatar? Have you ever heard of that before?
Yes. I used to have a friend that he went and lived there for a while.
He did. What was he doing there? Was he in the
He was there with
military?
his dad. His dad coached basketball there, so he would go and visit his dad a
His
lot.
dad coached basketball there.
Yeah.
Well, that's just quite unexpected.
Yeah, I don't know anything else about the country, though. Like, I've only ever known anything that he's ever told me.
Well, Qatar is a country that is almost a peninsula. It jets out from Saudi Arabia into the Red Sea.
Mm.
It's a stone's throw from Iran. Literally, it's probably 30 miles from Iran. It's right there. It's right in the Red Sea. And it's a tiny place. It only has 400,000 inhabitants, but it happens to be sitting on one of the largest oil fields on planet Earth. The kind of oil field that when you put a straw in the sand, up from the ground comes a bubbling crude. So they're very, very wealthy. And one family has run Qatar continuously, the El Thani family, since guess when? 1825.
What?
It's good to be king, isn't it?
Oh, wow.
It's good to be king. Now, Qatar is the home of Al Jazeera, which I frequently play, which in American media and punditry circles, Al Jazeera is reviled as a propagandist source for jihad. I play it all the time because it's the information from another street corner. Qatar is reviled by these same pundits and media talking heads. And I have to ask myself, why? Qatar is the home of U.S. Central Command. Let me say this again. Our military has these command centers, for different parts of the world. The Middle East Command Center for the U.S. military is Qatar. The largest U.S. military establishments in the Middle East, they're not in Israel, they're in Qatar. Qatar has 10,000 at least that they say on the books, American service people right there, right now. And I've had many friends who have been deployed to Qatar, and one of them operated drones there where they were killing Islamic extremists all over the Middle East from Qatar. Now, of course, the Emir of Qatar, El Thani, knows this. There's only 400,000 Qataris. These people are rich like Midas because of this oil. And here he sits there, the Emir, and right down the block from the U.S. military establishment was the headquarters of, guess what? Hamas. Qatar funds the Muslim Brotherhood. And everybody's heads blow off their shoulders. These people are no good. Well, why should I talk about it? Let's play 3A, Ben Shapiro.
Well, speaking of spending time abroad, Tucker Carlson, of course, was in Qatar, where he was interviewing the Prime Minister of Qatar, Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani. Now, it should be mentioned at this point that Qatar is, in fact, effectively a front state for Iran. They sort of try to play a middle role between the United States and Iran. Whenever there's a negotiation with a terrorist group, it always happens in Qatar. This is where the United States negotiated with the Taliban, sort of America's emissary to the terrorist world. But there's no question that Qatar is, in fact, a malign force in international politics. They supply literally billions of dollars in funding to Hamas. They've provided literal support to terrorist groups all over the region. They have provided significant financial relief to Iran itself. They have huge ties with Iran because they share a giant oil field. Qatar, for example, over the last few years has transferred almost $2 billion to Hamas. They host Hamas operations. All of their leaders, Hamas's leaders, were in Qatar, obviously. They also have a history of terror financing allegations ranging from the Muslim Brotherhood to even ISIL. There is also an American airbase in Qatar. So, again, they try to play both sides. It is also worthwhile noting here that Qatar is a major donor to America's universities. So if you don't like America's universities and you think they're trash, one major reason would be Qatar, which has spent, I kid you not, over the course of 2001 to 2021, $4.7 billion on American higher education. Those are donations from a country that has 400,000 citizens, of almost $5 billion to American universities. So if you don't like the wokeism, you don't like the anti-Americanism at America's universities, it turns out that the money is flowing from Qatar and has been flowing from Qatar for decades at this point.
That's very informative, Mr. Shapiro. That is your standard Fox News talking points. I just want to submit for your contemplation, without any 8x10 glossies, just using my experience in life in that part of the world, because I've been there many, many times. In fact, I was very good friends for decades with an American citizen that was recruited by neocon extraordinaire Paul Wolfowitz in the early 2000s to go at the United States behest and on the United States payroll to start, guess what? The American University in Qatar. So I have some insight into this, and the insight that I have makes me say I have no idea what's really going on here. I have no idea what's really going on here because it seems rather implausible to me that in a country that is defenseless, that has only 400,000 people, but with enough money to give all these donations to all these countries, including cutting a $1.2 trillion deal with the United States on this trip. What's really going on beneath the covers here? Who are these people? Because when I say it's the largest military base that we have, we the people, the United States military has in the Middle East, it is. I mean, nothing happens in Qatar without the United States knowing about it. And Shapiro says that's the place where they always go to have negotiations with the Taliban, with Hamas, with Iran. I mean, it's an outpost that we can, it's ours, okay? I mean, there's a country there called Qatar, and there's a king there, but this dude is on the payroll. So what's going on there, we just don't know. But it seems quite clear to me the way the Turks helped al-Jolani, al-Qaeda, get rid of Bashar al-Assad and take over Syria, for example. Or how about Ronald Reagan, for those of us that love St. Reagan, having the Mujahideen into the White House during his presidency and all the money that poured in to the Mujahideen in Afghanistan to expel the Soviets back in the day. I don't think that these divides, that these polarities are quite as clear and defined as our talking heads would like to have us believe. I think there's a lot more here to build on to create peace and prosperity than those that are plying the business of war would like us to know about. And President Trump, because he's not an insider, it didn't grow up in this unholy series of alliances and skullduggery, rolls into the reason and says, hey, don't you think making money together is better than killing each other? And don't you think that'd be better, Tanner? Wouldn't you rather see us make money than kill each other?
Yeah,
Doesn't that sound
anything
good?
but kill each other.
Yeah, come on. And then here's an amazing deal. Let's play number 4.
We have official confirmation both of explosions and gunfire, yes. What that is, it would suggest that there are bombs and that there are people also on hand with guns. I can't really add to it, but it's clearly from those pictures a very serious situation. And as I said, Reuters reporting multiple injuries, attributing that to a Turkish official, and that would be corroborated by these pictures of ambulances racing to that airport, the major main airport in Istanbul. Hala?
And tell us a little bit about previous attacks in Turkey. There have been some dramatic attacks against civilian targets in Istanbul and in other parts of Turkey in the last few months only.
Absolutely. In the last few months that the Turkish separatist PKK party has been picking up its campaign really against the government. Since last summer, there have been a series of attacks, the largest of which was in Ankara, in the capital of Ankara, a couple of months back. And this has caused the Turkish government really to ramp up their attacks against the PKK, and this war that had effectively lain dormant for really quite a few years was revived again with Turkish airstrikes against PKK targets around the borders areas with Syria and the PKK certainly ramping up their attacks on civilian targets in Ankara, in Istanbul also. We, of course, don't know who is responsible for this latest series of attacks at Istanbul's Ataturk airport. But we will be working very hard to get updates from Turkish
That's good,
official
Tanner.
sources.
Thank you. I play that as a historical piece. Your host rolled right on through that airport. Right at about that time, there was still blood on the sidewalks. That was one of my many trips to the region where I learned a lot about the Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, which the Turks revile. And they've been at war, the Kurdistan. Well, when the British were in the region with the French, turning brother against cousin and cousin against stranger and arming everybody and creating slaughter that's gone on for hundreds of years, the Kurds were left without a country. They say, hey, if we leave these people without a country, we can guarantee that there's going to be violence and we're going to make money off of that because these people are not nice. They weren't looking for peace and prosperity for everyone. They were just looking for what they could steal for themselves. That'd be the French and the British. I want to be very specific about it. So they left these Kurds without a country. Oh, and then at the same time, they decided to plunk the Jews down in the middle of the mess just to be sure that nobody got out unscathed. But after all these years of conflict, a 40-year-long armed conflict between the PKK and Turkey, it was announced just this week that the Kurdish militant group is going to disband. They're giving up armed struggle. They are going for the peace and prosperity path. I wonder what President Trump had to do with that. All you people like my friend Rob that think he's a dummy or corrupt, he may be corrupt. I don't know. But I'm looking at what he does. And if it turns out he's corrupt and he's robbing and stealing and breaking the law, he's going to get indicted and go to jail. But right now, what I see is a great attempt to make him seem corrupt so that the minds of the people are turned against him, when what I see him doing is reshaping the global order, smashing the globalist plan, and redescribing our alliances and our trade relationships so that, my 6 kids don't have to die in wars of discretion. And then I'm watching all these people in the Republican Party and here in Minnesota fight against this hammer and tong because, hey, it's just too good to have peace and prosperity. Can't make any money off of that. Let's talk about trade. Because this is another one of those deals where the conversation about what's going on shapes how people are thinking about it. And we know that there's this tariff regime that's been imposed, and lions and tigers and bears, we're all going to be paying so much more money for everything. It's going to tank everything. I watch these people on X and on television talk about trade. They don't know anything about it. They don't know how it works. They've never done it, but they're experts. And then my audience and the people around me in the Republican Party of Minnesota watch these people and believe what they have to say. Because why? Because they're on television. Great. We're searching for truth here at Free People Radio. We're searching for truth. That's what we do here. We don't say we know the truth. We're searching for it. If you'd like to help us, if you like this content, because today I'm rolling out a new idea that President Trump is possibly, I don't have any 8x10 glossies. I'm just listening to Mark Levin and Shapiro to find out how they think about it. And they certainly don't like it, which tells me something good could be going on. And I'm rolling this up. Maybe President Trump is limiting the ambitions, the manifest destiny ambitions of the Zionists who wrap their political goals and plans in the flag of faith, no different than party members of the Minnesota Republican Party who are pro-abortion, yet they pray to Christ before every meeting. It's the same thing. It's a political scam, right? It's supposed to make us think that what we're doing is blessed by God, that there's a destiny here because we have faith. So that's the faithless, using God in violation of a commandment. Thou shalt not use the Lord's name in vain, using the Lord's name in vain to cover up what they're really all about, which is manifest destiny, right? I mean, it's great to say I can rob and rape and pillage and steal in the name of the Lord. Hey, that goes all the way back to the way back, doesn't it? If we could wake up from one nightmare, it would be waking up from the belief that we can go rape and rob and kill in the name of the Lord. Doesn't that sound rather oxymoronic? So these pundits are saying that President Trump caved on China. And I want to talk about that because President Trump did come out and announce a reduction in the tariff rates to China. Please play number 5.
Is there a strong chance that the current tariffs will be completely paused after this weekend's talks?
No chance. No chance. No way. No way.
Well, what will happen? Well, okay. So let's say they don't. Let's say they have a great meeting and maybe a general understanding that we're going to talk again. We want to make progress, but the 145 stay in place, or is it moved down to what we heard today?
No. They come down to a human level, right? To a level where we do business. There are significant tariffs. The president is going to keep significant tariffs on trade with China. That is his objective. That's his expectation. That should be everybody's expectation. But 145% is decoupling. Let's not do business with each other. Let's bring it down to a level that he studied and he knows, right? Where did we come out with on Liberation Day? 34% is where it came out on Liberation Day. That's the studied number that Donald Trump did then. He may put it up higher, but that's kind of the idea. 34% Liberation Day, 20% for the fentanyl. If they stop doing the fentanyl, that'll come off, but we can't live with fentanyl ingredients coming to America. So I think that's the number that he published on Liberation Day, and that's the number you should look at. And somewhere around there, maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, Donald Trump will make the deal with the Chinese to de-escalate, and then we'll go forward from there, making deals with everyone in the world. Then we'll sit down with China and try to work out the right deal for America with China.
Any sense of where the final talks would take place, Howard?
No. I mean, I think there's going to be dozens of talks with China, but de-escalation first, and then huge amounts of talks and huge amounts of details of what's the right thing for America, and Donald Trump owns it.
Mr.
You know, that's Howard Lutnick, my alumni from Haverford College. We were there at the same time. I love watching him go. And I love watching on X how people say he's so stupid. The very people that are saying he's stupid are the globalists that want to keep their dog bowls filled. And all they value is money, these people that are saying he's stupid. And this dude's worth $2-3 billion. So if how much money you have is a measure of how smart you are, this guy's a genius.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, the hypocrisy and the BS that's associated with people trying to fight these changes is just profound. And the sentiment, you've heard it, that President Trump caved on China. He did not cave, okay? And I mean, I'm a participant in this supply chain. There was originally, where this started, when I started importing goods from China in 1993. How old were you in 1993?
I wasn't even a twinkle in my dad's eye.
There you go. I've been doing this for a while. It makes me an experienced participant in this game. I started in China in 1993. The tax at that time was, guess what? 4%. 4%. That was it. 4%. So when we imported $40,000 of goods from China, we paid $1,600 to the federal government because it was the free trade era. tariff revenue was very slight, but imports were big enough that we lost 6 million factory jobs since China ascended to membership in the WTO. And I have said, and I'm going to say again, if you're a new listener, thank you for joining. I'm a reformed globalist. I stopped that way of business in 2016 before President Trump came down that elevator. I'd already made my decision to stop. And I stopped because I knew what I was doing didn't make me feel good. I like to do things that make me feel good. I like to enhance my sacred honor. And when I fall short, I just keep trying and trying and trying to live up to what it is I need to do. I don't get there every day, and I don't get there all the time. I get there as much and as fully as I can, and I'm trying to grow in that every day. And I think that's what we as American citizens can best do to change this country. What can we do inside of ourselves to make this country great? Because if we're great, the country's great, right? But the tariff was 4, and then when President Trump, 45, had his first trade war #1 with China, there was a 25% additional tax imposed on most of the goods coming in from China, including tires, which we import to supply TireGet.com. So the tax was 29%. And President Biden campaigned his entire lead up to his victory. I will end that 25% on day one. And you know what he did? He never ended it. Why? Because we're broke and we need the money. This is about the money, right? Follow the money, Rob. So President Trump now imposed this 145% cumulative tax, and they've walked it back. So if you're reading, oh, President Trump caved on again, off again, it's all for not. No, the current tax on Chinese imports is the original 4, the 25 from 2018, 20 on fentanyl, and 10 on reciprocal tariffs. If my math's right, that's 59%. And let me tell you, that's a deal killer. So, yes, there will be imports starting again from China. We are going to have a mini COVID-like supply chain crisis. There will be some shortages of inconsequential goods. The consequential goods like tires, you can just go to TireGet.com. TireGet.com. You need tires for your spring and summer driving? You go to TireGet.com. It's everything you need to know about tires. It's 11 different brands. They're all at the right price. You can see you can use the promo code FPR for an additional 3% off the already low price and great customer service. If you call in, we might get to talk. We'll put the tires on and balance them 5 minutes from your house. It's a great deal. We have to import. This is the thing everyone has to understand. If you're in business in the United States of America, in a hard goods business today, our manufacturing infrastructure has been hollowed out to the point that if you don't import, you're out of business. Only 25% of the tires that you use on your vehicles are manufactured here in the United States. The tire business, like the automobile business, is an internationalized business. So because the president has lowered the tariff down to a 59% level, there will be a surge of imports, restocking the shelves at Costco and Walmart and Lowe's and Home Depot, or wherever it is you go to get whatever it is you got to get. If you need something, it'll be there. Now, there are so many ways that 59% is going to get offset, too numerous to mention, all legal, that the increase in price could be, I don't know, 25, 30%. So if you're buying needles for your sewing habit, you like to sew, you go on down to Michael's Arts and Crafts. You want to buy some needles. They're $1.29. Call them $1 for easy math. $1, for that little thing of needles, right? It's about $1, right?
Yeah.
It's cheap.
I haven't bought needles in a while, but yeah.
It's cheap, right? Going to cost you $1.30. Can you deal with it?
Yeah.
Okay. See, we're making a lot out of this because the people who are making a lot out of it are proponents of one world government. And they don't like the fact that President Trump has withdrawn from one world economy, which is moderated by a world governance body associated with the United Nations called the World Trade Organization, the WTO. They don't like it because their plans are getting foiled. Their dog bowl might get emptied. So they're going to say whatever they're going to say. They're going to say that Qatar is this, that, thus, and so, when what it really is a U.S. military base. So, I mean, one could make the case if they had the 8x10 glossies, like if it was an unredacted release of secret documents. We might find out that all those terrorist organizations were all set up by the United States and Israeli government. We could find that out, and there's good evidence that I can't prove to you, so it's hearsay, that there's some truth in that. So, you know, as we search for truth and push our elected representatives to tell the truth, to stop treating me like I'm an idiot, I would appreciate finding out what's really going on. Check out the real situation, for example. You know, I get this thing from elected representatives here in Minnesota because I like one of them. I'm not going to mention their names. But they say, you know, you've never governed. You don't know nothing about it. You just have to do it this way. We got to cooperate with these communists. That's what we got to do. You don't understand. You know what? I do understand. And I don't like to be guilted out that, oh, I should have become an elected representative. Anytime there's a should statement, you know, guilt's close at hand. You know, David, you should get elected. Then you would understand. I should get elected. I don't want to do what you're doing. I want to do what I'm doing. And somehow you all think you're an elevated group of folks that have the right to make decisions independent from the people who elected you. That's great. We're not going to elect you again. That's where we're heading with this. So if you want to keep your job in show business, it's time to start reflecting the will of your constituents. And then at the same time, I'm trying to change what the constituents think about you. Boy, you guys are trapped in a box canyon. Man, tough to be elected, isn't it? Tough. It's a tough job. You don't get no respect. You guys are all like Rodney Dangerfield. Now, let's play number 7 just to let you know how far these people will go into the bag to tell a story.
California is now the 4th largest economy in the world. Innovation, manufacturing, agriculture. And we've done it by reducing trade barriers and delivering for American consumers. But the Trump administration is putting all of that at risk, halting delivery of essential goods through our ports. Today, it's school backpacks. In a few months, it'll be Christmas toys. These tariffs punish families and risk ending America's run as the world's greatest economy. Take it from California. We're the ones leading it.
Okay, that's Gavin Newsom, governor of California. Of course, the largest port in the country, the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach, pitching global governance and one world economy. And that ad ran where? Oh, on Fox News. It was a Fox News deal. Isn't that special? And what does he talk about? Backpacks and Christmas toys. For our children, after all. For our children, we should give up our freedom and our sovereignty for our children. Hey, let me give you a blast. A blast. When I was a kid, you know, Tanner, when I walked to school, because there was no school buses back in those days.
This one to me.
We had no
classic. I had to walk to school.
I did. There was no school buses. We're talking about the 60s. There was no busing.
I believe you.
No, there was no busing until the word came down from the Supreme Court that separate but equal doesn't work, and we're going to have to bus black students from the inner city out to the suburbs to redress the wrongs of the inequality in education.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there was no busing. I mean, it's Minnesota, and in those days, just for a little fun, it's before global climate change. It would go below zero from like January 3rd through like February 15th. The high was 3 below zero. The low was 20 below zero. The wind chill was 50 below zero. And I was playing hockey outside. I used to walk home after high school all sweated up because there was no indoor rinks. Guess what? We played outside. Yes, we did. The ice was not very good. That's where we played. And I'd walk home all sweated out because there was no bus and there was no car, because in those days, hey, mom and dad didn't pick you up. It was a different world. I remember my hair one time when I was driving home, and I snapped off a piece of my long hair because it froze like an icicle. So there was no busing. And guess what? There was no backpacks. I used to carry my books under my arm.
Yeah, nowadays, when I was going to high school, some days I didn't even need to bring my backpack. It was a Chromebook. They give kids Chromebooks now. It's,
Oh, boy, you guys are so...
all the more reason to not have a freaking backpack.
And then, oh my God, if we don't have imports, there won't be any Christmas toys, because it's for our kids, right? It's for our kids. Feel guilty about your kids. Give up your freedom for your children so that they can be economic slaves living in coffin apartments and eating bugs. Isn't that great? I was looking in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. They ran a editorial from, of course, a professor at the University of Minnesota. I wasn't going to talk about it, but apropos, after seeing Gavin Newsom's prurient pitch to parents to give up their freedom, they ran a editorial in the Star-Tribune, and the headline was, "Are tariffs going to obstruct our access to blueberries?" And then this guy, David Perry, who works at the University of Minnesota, talks about his child, who unfortunately has a very severe autism, and he only eats about 13 to 20 different foods, and blueberries are among the healthiest on the list. And now he's afraid that because of Trump's tariffs, there won't be any blueberries. Oh, great. You know what? I get it. That's awful.
You can grow blueberries in Minnesota.
But he has to eat them year-round because he only eats 13 foods.
Oh, I get that.
He's got an autistic problem, and we're supposed to give up our freedom as a society because our heart is torn by this horrible situation of this one child, and it is terrible. It is terrible. It's terrible.
I think the power of community would be strong then. Let's get more people to grow blueberries with them. My point is that we can grow blueberries here. So there's, I understand it's definitely tough and be like, oh man, I can't get that anymore from this country, not as many, but like we can grow it here. So there is a fix to it.
There is. Every day, my eldest son, Nico, eats a bowl with breakfast, ideally the biggest and sweetest blueberries we can find at the store. Wow. Okay, so we got Gavin Newsom talking about backpacks and Christmas toys, and we got this editorial in the Star-Tribune talking about this poor sufferer, which is awful. And I'm sorry, David Perry, that you're suffering and your child is suffering, because the suffering of children is terrible. Also, a chronically diseased children is the most profitable business in America, but we'll leave that for another time. Let's listen to number 8 just to finish with Gavin Newsom.
And what my fear is, it's not my fear, it's the reality. We've seen 11% decline last month in tourism in the state of California. We're projecting, after record-breaking tourism spend, we're seeing the impacts already of this tariff war. We're seeing the impacts with dock workers. We're seeing the impacts with truckers, with small businesses, with my own eyes. This is not an intellectual exercise. So if it wasn't so chaotic, I would at least engage in a very, I think, reasonable conversation about addressing those issues with a little bit more muscularity. But this is recklessness. And I cannot impress upon you, you know this, the impacts can't be unwound quickly and easily. And I fear that Geneva is not going to be a success. It needs to be. I'm promoting that success, but I very much fear that the nature of the decision-making that seems to come on news cycles, not on the basis of a grand strategy, is the great impediment in terms of getting to the place we all want to go.
That's, again, Gavin Newsom talking about recklessness. They also say it's chaos. One of the most eloquent strategies, so well thought through, that the Trump administration is implementing to change the global order. Of course, to him, it's reckless, and to others, it's chaos because they don't like what he's doing, so they're labeling it. Labeling is a cognitive distortion meant to manipulate the listener. And there are real effects from this. There are real effects, just like there were real effects back in the 90s and the 2000s when 6 million jobs got lost. Where were you then, Gavin Newsom? Where were you then? Who was speaking up for all the Americans that got smoked by the decision that was made to offshore all this business to China? Well, I know I stopped because I saw the suffering. And now President Trump is saying, hey, go ahead, import. Please, Mr. Penn, import for Target because you're going to pay us 25% of the action. See, the U.S. government now, it's not just 25, it's actually 29. In fact, it's as much as 35% of the action the U.S. government's taken off the top for doing what? Nothing. They don't have to do anything. They're just collecting the cash. In fact, tariff revenues were an all-time high in April, and we're just getting rocking and rolling. This program is not chaotic. It is not reckless. It is a concerted effort to raise revenue so that we don't go broke, so that we don't have to knuckle under, so that our freedom, which is the collateral to that $37 trillion debt, so the bank can't come in and take our freedom. Okay, great. You know, there's going to be some collateral damage when you run up a $37 trillion debt. And who runs up this debt? And how does it get run up? Well, the same people that are for global governance in one world economy, guess what? They're for war. Please play number 9.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That's Macron, Prime Minister of France, with Zelensky, one of the best salesmen in the world, meeting to pursue their agendas while President Trump is out trying to create peace. And let's continue with it. Number 10. The Sturmer, England, Merz, Germany, Macron, France with Zelensky. There he is, Mr. England, the Englander. They're all getting together. Oh, they all look like they're all together on this now. And just for fun, and you've probably seen this, I'm just going to play it because I like the music so much. And you can tell me if you saw this, Tanner. Watch this one closely. I want your opinion afterwards as a young man. Please play number 11. What do you think there, Mr. Tanner?
I don't know what that little tool was. Was that I'm sorry, I don't know much about Coke.
It looked a little bit surreptitious though, didn't it?
Yeah, the way to me it just looked like a napkin, but he definitely was like trying to hide it and looking all funny. I don't know, I stopped for a second. I just think like, you think that they would reveal that big of a secret to other world leaders?
That they're getting high?
Yeah, like if you personally did Coke, do you think you'd be comfortable sitting in a business meeting and then
That's who I was sitting with.
Yeah, I guess.
You know, I mean, I've sat.
That's wild. I don't know.
You know,
the
tire business holds an annual convention in Las Vegas, which I attended continuously from 1981 till 2019. Never missed a year. And somewhere along the way, Vegas legalized marijuana. Somewhere along the road. So, you know, we used to drink and show up at these meetings pretty screwed up, okay? And then everybody started getting high. And so, you know, if everybody got high, nobody hit it. So I guess it depends who you hanging around with, right? I don't know if those people were getting high, but the implication was made online. And if they're not getting high, how do you explain their crazy ass behavior? You know, from my perspective, God, let's give them an off-ramp. Maybe we get them some treatment and they'll give up cocaine and a lust for war and manifest destiny at the same time. I wonder if there's treatment for manifest destiny. We could start one, our audience, we could start a treatment program for sufferers of manifest destiny. And here's two sufferers that bear real close consideration. Senator Tom Cotton, Arkansas, and Senator Lindsey Graham, South Carolina. These two neocon war hawk Republican assholes, two of the most hawkish members of the Congress, are working together in concert to sabotage President Trump's chances of reaching a nuclear disarmament agreement with Iran. This past Thursday, the two senators held a press conference outlining a resolution they're introducing that demands that any deal with Iran must include the total dismantlement of Tehran's nuclear enrichment program, an idea that Iranian officials have made clear as a non-starter. Graham said, Senator Lindsey Graham, quote, to the Iranian regime, you claim all you want is a peaceful nuclear power program. You can have it, but you cannot enrich, and you must dismantle. And you must dismantle now. Graham and Cotton said that any deal must require ratification from the Senate and must also impose limits on Iran's ballistic missile program. Graham said, a treaty with Iran in this space is only possible if you get 67 votes in the Senate. And you're not going to get 67 votes for a treaty regarding Iran's nuclear program unless they deal with the missile program and their terrorist activity. So is it possible? Yes, Graham said, only if Iran changes. Well, Graham is saying that there's no way that President Trump can conclude a treaty with Iran. Let's play 11A.
Today we celebrate the 77th Independence Day of Israel, our closest friend and ally in the Middle East.
Just here want to acknowledge and salute and celebrate Israel's 77th year.
I'm proud to congratulate Israel on 77 years of independence.
77 years of resilience.
Happy birthday, Israel. Happy Independence Day.
Happy Independence Day. In Tel Aviv, 77 years ago, Jewish leaders signed Israel's Declaration of Independence.
America was the first country to recognize Israel as an independent state.
The generation of 1948 fought for and secured Israel's independence with blood, sweat, and tears.
This milestone is a testament to the resilience and the enduring spirit of the Israeli people.
The things you've been through, 48, War for Independence, 67, 73, and of course a year and a half ago, October 7th.
I fully support Israel's right to defend itself against these terrorists and their backers in Tehran.
This is the second year in a row that not all Israelis are able to celebrate their Independence Day.
It's past time to bring the rest of the hostages home and restore peace to the region.
We refuse to sit idly by while they suffer.
The United States and Israel have a binding, ironclad partnership.
A strong bipartisan majority of the United States Congress stand firmly with our ally Israel.
It's a win-win relationship.
We must continue to build support for the relationship that transcends politics.
It is a bond rooted in our shared values of liberty,
the commitment to religious freedom, and the inherent respect for human life.
Please join me in standing for Israel, for freedom, for peace.
A strong, vibrant, powerful Israel is essential for the world.
May our friendship continue to grow long into the future.
We are in this together.
Fast friends between Israel and America.
Happy Independence Day.
Happy birthday.
I'm Yisrael. Hi.
Really appreciate all that y'all do.
Well. I'm going to step right in it now.
Why the hell wasn't I on the list to get payment? There are so many people there.
You need to get elected.
Ah.
In fact, to get elected and stay elected, you got to get elected on your own. But to stay elected, these folks can help. That's AIPAC. That's the American Israel Political Action Committee. This is not a small organization. You know, if we had a Chinese American Political Action Committee, or how about a Russia American Political Action Committee, I wonder how that would go down around the campfire if we found out that Russia was spending, let me see here. I want to get you a good number. Boy, I got to get a good number. The total number is, I don't know, maybe like $60, $70 million in the last cycle was given to politicians by AIPAC. And they pick them very selectively, too. They pick out the people that they know they can get the job done. The lobbying budget for AIPAC itself was $3,300,000, according to Open Secrets. But they have associated PACs that they run, AIPAC runs, and we're talking about big money now that goes into these PACs. We're talking about maybe close to $100 million a year in a good year. So these people, and these people are Jewish people, are really controlling the Overton window of what gets discussed in Congress and what gets discussed in media. And Tom Cotton is working with Lindsey Graham to sabotage the chances of this Iran deal because, of course, war with Iran is at the top of Israel's list. They've been working up to it for years. Tom Cotton is reputed to have received anywhere between $1.2 million and $4,737,000 from AIPAC. Lindsey Graham, much less, $297,000. That's because Lindsey is over there in South Carolina, where the South Carolina Republican Party is controlled by the neocons and the rhinos. He doesn't have much of a problem. So no reason to waste any money on him because, of course, you got to be smart with the cash, right? Tom Emmer and his Israeli flag-waving Emirites here in Minnesota, like Mary Amlaw, he's gotten $592,000 from AIPAC. And the presumptive front runner for the Democrats in the upcoming senatorial race here in Minnesota, Angie Craig, a Democrat. You know what? I didn't think the Democrats were so down with this. $456,000. That's why I know Angie Craig will be getting the Democrat endorsement for the Senate race here in Minnesota because she's got the backing of AIPAC. In fact, AIPAC makes a big deal about being bipartisan. In fact, we here at Free People Radio made a big deal about AIPAC's landing page, which had skullduggerous figures on it like Catherine Clark and Hakeem the Wise One Jeffries and Mike Johnson and Tom Emmer. They were all there, hands across the water. These two groups that hate each other, the Democrats and Republicans. Oh, that's right. I was told just yesterday, we have to govern together. We have to govern together. And the outcome of that governance is debt, death, division, depravity, destruction, denial, all the D's. We should come up with a song, just the D's. The D's. That's the outcome of what this governing together is bringing us. So we see Michelle Fishbach up there in Northwest Minnesota. Why would AIPAC care about her? $61,000. Why not? Pete Stauber, CD8. I mean, this guy, come on. Duluth, $22,000 just as a sidebar. These people are passing out money. They are buying influence. This is what it is supposed to be. And I remember in the last cycle when aspiring Senator Royce White talked about the Jewish lobby, they said he was anti-Semitic for saying that. When I say they, I mean the media. I mean the Star Tribune. And I mean that there was thousands of articles. And you know what they actually said? There's no Jewish lobby. That's what they actually said that he'd made up that was a anti-Semitic trope. An anti-Semitic trope. When in reality, all he was saying is there's a Jewish lobby. It's called AIPAC, and it gives $60-70 million a cycle. I'm sorry, I can't give you the exact number because I got so many notes when I was researching this. And what does AIPAC want to do? AIPAC wants to advance the aims of Zionism in Israel, and it's very damn good at it. As you could see from that long, short, that's an oxymoron, that long clip of all those elected representatives speaking so eloquently about Israel. We got a problem with our governance. People are on the payroll. They sell out. And, the money goes into their campaign funds. And the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, monitors those accounts. And every time they go out to eat, it's a campaign meal. And every time they fill their tank, it's a campaign-related trip. And every time they get on an airplane, it's a campaign flight. And every time they do anything, it's campaign-related. And it is because they're professional politicians. But if nobody gives them any money, they have no money to spend. And AIPAC is keeping their League of People chocked full to the brim with the cash. And there's a little sister, and I don't even know why they need it, but our former senator here in Minnesota, Norm Coleman, runs the Republican Jewish Committee, which has its local branch run by an attorney in Minneapolis, Mark Miller, and they're doing the same thing. So is it legal? Yes, it's legal. Which only goes to show you that rule of law is only as good as the sacred honor of the people who live under that rule. Like here in Minnesota, MnGOP. MnGOP is so screwed up, and it's getting more screwed up all the time. We just had the Lincoln-Reagan dinner this past week. I did not attend because MnGOP hired surreptitiously an influencer, and I think more than one influencer, to trash me personally. And I don't want to give them more money because they're continuing to put their thumb on the scales of our local politics. Alex Plekish, the chairman of the party, has already come out and said the party endorses Michelle Fischbach up in CD7, even though we haven't even had the election season. I mean, how crazy is that, Alex? What's wrong? He's running around the state saying Adam Schwartzy is his guy for Senate. I don't know if you get this, Alex, but that's not correct, what you're doing. If I ran this party, first of all, there'd be no groups that I would reject from the party. I mean, unless they're terrorists, they can't come in. But I mean, the party is at war with the grassroots. Why? Because the grassroots want peace and prosperity. They want an end to war, and they're questioning, all this money that's flown into politics. And they think that the political leaders of our party have sold out. And, that is grounds for them to be excommunicated, like me, excommunicated out of the party because we can see the corruption and we're calling it out. You're only making this movement bigger. Please keep resisting. Your resistance is essential to your demise. Please keep it up. Strengthen it. Fight so that the people can see how corrupt and venial and petty you really are. And people are slow to pay attention to this because, they got lives. I mean, remember, only about 10% of the people know what's going on. And even a small percentage, maybe 1 or 2%, are actually playing the game. The rest of the people don't have time for this BS. They don't. They just want us, the political participants, to create a world that's peaceful and prosperous within which they want to live their lives. The social compact has been ruptured by the people we elected to create that peace and prosperity, and instead gave us a $37 trillion debt and an endless war. Hey, you know what, guys? I said this, I'd like to say it again. A white shirt wearing, red, white, and blue tie wearing, blue suit wearing, American flag lapel pin wearing, Harvard undergrad, Harvard Law School, ex-military, married the high school sweetheart, has 3 kids. That is a costume, like in a movie. Because the outcome was the endless war. So to tell me that somehow that person is better qualified to lead than an American citizen who dresses down, who has a personal life history he's not hiding, because to think that these 435 members that are dressed up like that with those curricular vitaes to think that they don't have affairs, they don't do drugs, they didn't steal and rob. Come on. That's just naive. Stop it. It's a lie. I don't accept it. I would rather wear my inequity on my sleeve, be honest about it, and say I'm searching for truth and I'm trying to put sin underfoot instead of pointing out the cinder in somebody else's eyes. I got my own problems. And the only reason I'm talking about these elected representatives is not that I want to. I have to, because if nobody calls them out, they're just going to continue to mislead the people. They're lying to us. So I'm going to say this to Walter Hudson and Speaker DeMuth and all the rest of you. I don't need to agree with you. I have nothing personal against you. I don't think that we as the Republican Party of Minnesota can advance our electoral prospects if we live in a lie. I think only by telling each other the truth and telling the truth to the constituents can we aggregate more people to the Republican cause. When we lie, and for some of you people, every time your lips move, you're lying, we're not going to bring any new people into the party because people can feel it. People can feel the difference between truth and lies. They can feel it. That's why all the lies told about Donald Trump haven't worked. They see he wants to bring peace and prosperity. They feel it. They're not interested in your story about Stormy Daniels because they know you got a Stormy Daniels in your closet. It just didn't tumble out. Sometimes it does tumble out. The very same people that get caught are always the most righteous and holier than thou. Why would you do that? It would seem if you had these problems, if you're a drunk driving bust or you had an affair or you got caught robbing and stealing, you would think that that would make you humble and make you open to listen to the least among us. But that doesn't work that way, at least not in politics. Works that way in life. I mean, in real life, when people are brought low, they pick up humility. And I want to say this again. I put some bluster on this show about myself because I'm trying to inspire some confidence and some courage in you, the listener. And please, if you're watching on Royce's X, just take 2 seconds and repost the link. And thank you for reposting the links. Repost these links. Let us build a digital army of people that are working together, that are getting the word out. We've got a huge communications platform, and we're only scratching the surface of using it in coordination to force these professionals to represent us. Right now, they're not representing us. They're representing the people who are giving them the money. But if we get organized and they're afraid they're going to lose access to that money, they're going to be caught between a rock and a hard place. Their money masters are going to tell them to do X, and we're going to tell them to do Y, and they're going to have to make a choice. That's where we need to head. So for all you elected officials who say that I don't get it, you're wrong. I do get it. You don't have to actually go to govern in the State House to understand how that game is played, because it's right there. I can see it. And maybe one day I'll be called upon to run, and I will. It's not up to me. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do next. And right now, I'm supposed to say, and I'm going to say this again, and I mean this so sincerely. The Minnesota Republican Party has to take votes. Some of these votes are very complex. I understand that. There was a vote in the Minnesota House, and there was a Medicaid component to it. And that Medicaid component funds both prenatal care, the births of children, and also the abortions of children. So the case was made by elected representatives that if you call out these Republicans for voting for taxpayer-funded abortion, you're missing the point because you're also ignoring the funding of prenatal care and the funding of healthy childbirth. And I think that's a very reasonable response. I just have one request. I'm not saying you don't have to take difficult votes if you're listening to me, and I know you are, and thank you for listening, because we're going to make Free People Radio an important news source here in Minnesota, and the fact that you're listening and responding tells me we're succeeding. We're succeeding because the content's good. It's not personal. And I'm not saying you can't take a tough vote. I understand what you're facing. I'm just working on one thing right now, one thing in CD3. I was very offended that the CD3 convention included a benediction, and I was urged to walk on the principles of Christ, and that Adam Schwartzy stood up in front of the delegate body and said that he was adopted instead of aborted, therefore he's pro-life. And then the delegates promptly elected to governance of CD3 the architects of the effort to water down the pro-life policies in the Minnesota GOP platform. If the people want a pro-abortion platform, if that is the outcome of the democratic process, I'm not advocating revolution or civil war, but I am advocating this. Stop praying before the meetings. If we're going to be like the Democrat, why would we continue with something as obsolete and antiquated as praying to God? Why would we do that? It's oxymoronic to promote and accept policies that are antithetical to a religious position, yet continue to wrap those policies in the cloth of Christ. Please, for the safety of the constituents and for the well-being of our community, let us be honest. If you want to have a pro-life party, pray. If that's no longer a priority, drop it, because it is insulting to people of faith to have God used like a wash rag. And that's exactly what you're doing. Well, Thursday night, a beautiful weekend coming up. Summer is here. I wish you well. I want to thank you all for joining. Repost the links. Let people know what we're doing. Lots of content for you to work with. Go to Target. Go to the Free People Store. Tanner, thank you for being here so early this morning.
Of course.
Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Have a good night, everybody.